Secretary Dominic Raab says the request for serial killer Levi Bellfield to get married in prison is just inconceivable and unlikely to happen due to safeguarding concerns.
But while prisoners typically lose the freedom to do most things, they are still able to apply for permission to have a wedding, even those with no prospect of freedom. So is it wrong to let prisoners get married? Well, joining us to discuss this, we have Heike Phelan, who has married a prisoner in jail in Texas, and criminal barrister Jerry Hayes, who thinks it's ridiculous and has no impact on a prisoner's rehab at all. Good morning to both of you. Heike, thank you for coming in. Can you explain a little bit about how you came to meet your husband?
I met my husband through, it was a Christmas cards programme where you would just send cards to prisoners at Christmas just to let them know that, you know, they weren't entirely forgotten. It was not random, you know, it was given a list of who to send to, and one of the cards I sent went to a friend of William's, and he didn't want it and gave it to William, and that he wrote a very long letter to me, and that's where it started. And so within quite a short space of time you became very close, but from writing letters to then getting married is quite a sort of a big gap. It is, yeah, it was 3 years. 3 years, and what has marrying your husband, who is prisoner and inside, can I ask what he's serving time for? Well, he's convicted under a law called Law of Parties, which means he was with somebody who committed the crime. And the crime was? He himself didn't do it. The other guy killed somebody. So it's murder? Yeah.
And I think what people would think is, how can you want to be married to somebody that's done that? Would it make a difference depending on what crime was committed? You feel, does that influence you? Well, I think maybe if I went out to choose to do this, then probably. But, you know, I just got to know a person who happened to be in prison, you know, and it was that personal relationship rather than what he was in there for that makes the difference. You know, nobody goes out and said, oh, I'm going to marry a prisoner, you know. No. What do you get out of it? Will he ever be released? Yeah, he's got, I think, 8 more years before parole. So, well, I mean, you know, our relationship is really close, and, I mean, through letters, you actually learn so much more about someone than just, you know, on a day-to-day basis, just chatting, because there's you don't need to sort of worry about things. Should I say this? Shouldn't I? Because you're writing it down. Because there will be lots of people this morning, Heike, who will be saying, and this was the outrage yesterday for Levi Bellfield requesting this, is the families of his victims will have to sit through the idea that their children never got to see their wedding days. Millie Dowler never had her wedding day. And yet here's Levi Bellfield being allowed to do this. The victims of the person that your husband was convicted of as being party to that murder, they will never have that. So why should your husband have the right to be able to get married? I think it's really dangerous when you start mixing up someone's personal life with what they've been put in prison for, you know. Once they've been convicted, that is supposed to be the punishment, their loss of freedom, you know, from society for a period of time. That's not meant to then say, right, you are a non-person now, you're not entitled to anything, you know, all you can do is breathe. I mean, that's just not realistic. The victims might feel that. I can't speak from that side, you know, and I understand that. Well, let's get Jerry's perspective on that then. Jerry?
Heike and I spoke earlier, and a delightful lady, but I think most viewers would say, this is really creepy. It's weird. It's almost ghoulish. That how on earth can you have a relationship with someone? How often did you meet him? Many times. When you say many times, roughly? 4 or 5 times a year. 4 or 5 times a year. A relationship by a letter. You say you're close, but people just say, why? What is it that attracted you to this? But that aside, Jerry, let's talk about the rights of the prisoner to be able to apply to get married and have an opportunity to fall in love with someone and have a private life. Well, do it in the usual way. Wait until they're released. It's not going to be a normal relationship. It's not going to be a proper relationship. The guy who we're really talking about is a monster. What sort of person wants to marry wants to speak to, wants to have a relationship with
Because
a
of
man like that.
rehabilitation, someone would say.
Well, some
because you
might
have an
say.
opportunity for rehabilitation. And is this part of it?
No, of course it's not. You're not going to be rehabilitated by marrying someone you hardly know.
Look, how do you know? I mean, everybody has people in their lives, you know, before they commit these crimes or whatever they do, you know, and it's a huge mistake to start saying that's the end of all your personal relationships, because, I mean, statistics and studies have shown that within 2 years of incarceration, close family and friends fall away. But they've also shown that these are the most important things to keep going to ensure, you know, rehabilitation and coming out in the future. And there's the other side of it, that if somebody doesn't have something to value in life, prisons are very dangerous places, and someone with nothing to lose is a very dangerous person.
I suppose therefore the argument
He's never
is no
going to be
victims.
released.
No.
Yeah.
And he's a monster.
Absolutely.
But does that mean he shouldn't have something in his life of value? Because it goes beyond that.
As it is, we're out of time, unfortunately, Heike. He has applied for this. Whether he actually gets the
I don't
opportunity
think he
to do
will.
it,
It's up to the governor.
Absolutely.
Governor's discretion.
And we will see. But look, Heike,
Very
thank you for coming in and
interesting to
sharing
hear
your
your
story.
perspective.
I'm sorry we don't have more time to talk through it more. Jerry, it's always good to get your perspective. Thank you for joining.